You know how I stumbled into this game? The one and only Milky Ray. That's the whole bit. The fanboy major himself glazed it from top to bottom. Not like that. And I just decided to check it out for myself.
Who is this guy? Why is this girl's voice so deep? I don't know if you know this, dude, but I'm a fucking guy.
No, you're fucking not.
No, really,
I said, no, you're fucking not.
I mean, this should be right up my alley. I'm needy. I'm a streamer, kinda, sometimes. And I get the sensory overload with scratching noises and such. So this game should be perfect for me, right? Released in 2022, Needy Streamer Overload is a Denpa-inspired novel with pictures, or, as some other people call it, visual novel. Now go check how many essays are in comments because of this joke alone. By the way, if you don't know, Denpa is a style of Japanese horror focused on paranoia and social alienation. The game was made primarily by the development team of Zenomo in Japan and published by WSS Playground and Alliance Arts Inc. Noteworthy to point out that the actual name in Japan is not Needy Streamer Overload, but Needy
Girl.
Overdose, which is a bit more honest, but both titles in my opinion are fitting, since you do get overloaded and you overdose on this needy streamer. You get choked on her exhaust fumes, trying to keep her afloat from crazy land. Fun Verlune fact: in the first drafts of this video idea, I accidentally wrote Needy Streamer Overlord instead of Overload, which sounds like the title for the sequel, where streamers dominate the world and Pisha needs to take all of them and make them really sad by saying they looked 30. Now, this isn't characteristic of me, but I will put a spoiler warning, since, unlike most games I talk about here, this one isn't old enough to drink, neither in Europe nor in the US, so some of you may still be curious if that is your case. Play it and then watch this video or proceed at your own risk. Before we get into it, make me a needy YouTuber on an algorithm overdose by liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing and checking the description. My Ko-Fi and phone are there for donations and the straw page to send suggestions. Check also my streaming channel for when I relapse into my streaming career. And now we shall take care of the idol equivalent of mischief.
I'm ashamed that the situations got so bad, but Emmy was also violent. She would throw clothes or plushies at me, and I punched holes in the walls or slammed doors in aggression. I one time did say I was going to kill myself during an argument.
In this game, you control Pishan, I assume a play on the common player description, and Chen, which should need no introduction. But I digress, as we boot up our fake operating system in our fake PC inside my real laptop, the all-powerful Windows
20.
and prepare to help our girlfriend, I guess. As you will see, Pichan and Ame's relationship is funny like that. The titular needy streamer, the already mentioned Ame, who goes by KAngel, to prepare her great debut. The gameplay loop itself is quite simple. At night, you start a stream with her and you can highlight comments for her to read, although I assume they matter not for most of the game, or at least a variety of outcomes, since you can skip these moments, and if they do, it's small stuff that little matters to the overarching story of most routes. During the day though, you have to manage her between getting new ideas, lowering her stress and mental darkness, managing her affection and trying to keep her as mentally stable as possible. The twist is, you can barely handle the equilibrium, allegedly. I have thoughts on the matter, and at most times, you are just min-maxing a situation instead of running a perfect run. The first 10 days of this game is what I like to see as the tutorial period, because the game does try to reward replay, but in this period it's really hard to get any alternative endings besides Flatline, which we will discuss later, And so close yet so far, where Pishan and Ame aren't able to monetize their content and need to go back to their parents' house. At least Ame does. I don't know what happens to Pishan. I do find it weird throwing away 1/3 of the player's time into a mostly scripted section in a game that rewards, and that is rewards in quotes, replay. But Doki Doki Literature Club also technically values replay if a 90% of that game is white noise. Now, to fully make it clear, and before we get into the runs I was able to finish, in my opinion, and I may be crucified for this take, one of its major flaws is that this game doesn't reward exploration. As I hinted in the last few paragraphs, at least not full-on experimentations without keeping in mind stuff that should not matter. This ending, for example, the already mentioned So Close Yet So Far, took me 5 tries until I landed on the perfect run to fail at getting 10k followers. And I mean not just leaving Pigeon because I forgot to wait 5 damn seconds for her message to pop up or whatever before I finished what I needed. Either way, we are able to monetize our content and pay our rent. In the game, of course, I'm still a long way from that, as of the writing of this script. Weirdly, now this is my first creator side complaint I have with this game, which are a few, but mostly just nitpicks that will not matter and don't in the long run, but hit me in the wrong way. Monetization and getting money is not this simple. Let me just disregard the fact she grows to 10k in a week and is complaining she is still small. The game is clearly just exaggerating a bit to drive Ame's character home and point out her inherent flaws, even if creating a weirdly forgiving fake world. But I find the immediate monetization and payment kind of a cop-out, because this isn't how this stuff works. If I was in charge of making the game, I'd make it so that you would have to go in debt from paying the rent, and then you set up a small shop system that isn't available until you fully pay the debt from the rent by accumulating money from the streams and such. As it is though, it's mostly fine, just one of the details that weirded me out, knowing the small creator grind and life. The game then makes you get into as much deep shit as possible, and starts roping you into the Sisyphus adjacent task of holding together Tizzy Girl with a few screws loose. My first try, after day 10, reeks of the first time player trying to hold together while making it worse on another front, which is how the game expects you to play, I assume. The game, for its merits and detriment, makes it clear from the start Ame is in love with you and already has clingy tendencies even before she opens the only streamer's account. To fully explain my thought process, I tried in my first playthrough to keep her affection balanced, which didn't work since I was relying on affection based events, which were a blessing in disguise, even if I hated it during the run. As many other tries and replays revealed to me that if the affection goes too low, she just leaves the game. As I said previously, which is a big middle finger to that one player that has seen the same 15 messages so much they don't care anymore. After I ran through the 30 days, I got the utopian parody ending, where KAngel blocks her boyfriend, and I imagine IRL somehow, for not growing enough to satisfy her greedily, actually cynical tendencies to inflate her followers count. I question what happens IRL because that conversation would be hilarious.
I didn't reach 1 million sims in 30 days.
But I made you reach almost 600k in 30 days. Statistically, only need 20 days at max to get you there.
Baka, idiot, blocked, not my BF anymore.
Or she does the Logan Paul, but it's Pigeon instead of So, after I saw there were more endings from the game end screen, I decided to naturally hunt for them all. They should be quite easy with such simple gameplay, right? Well, first try I got flatline at day 8. Second try I got the same ending at day 6. Third time I accidentally pressed the overlay button for OBS. Yes, I have a Kirby background because of the last stream I did ever. By the time this video releases it won't be, but sure. Overlay but I actually got the ground control to psychoelectric angel ending, and I accidentally got it later again, which is kinda funny since the game makes you sure you know that from day one this bitch is in love with you, so I can't imagine what the 100th affection does differently that she won't do if you choose not to follow this path, besides not having sex every day. And this is my main complaint with the game. Even following a guide, these endings are so hard to get that if you don't actively engage with every minute detail to the point you know the mechanics and values of everything in the game, which is kind of understandable, but it cheapens the effect the story would and could have. As it is now, instead of a spiral that never seems to have a good ending, as every option feels and leads to an ending worse than the last one, it feels more like the developers kinda just slapped on extra endings and wanted players to play a certain way to get them. Throwing out of the window the fun of trial and error gameplay leading to different outcomes, since out of the 5 experiments I did, only one was successful in giving me a new outcome, outside of the original. And that flattens the genius of the game, since it makes it feel like they did not account for every playstyle. As someone who finds the Cole's way of making alternate outcomes extremely dubious, sometimes, when finding new routes, for most casual players this is much worse. I played this game from the start 5 times, sure you can choose what day to start in, but sometimes a run is cooked from day 1, or day 5. And in the 3 playthroughs I got the same generic ending, over forgetting to respond to her messages, or letting her affection fall too low, or whatever random interaction triggers flatline. Then she left at the 6th run, where she left because she was in her period or something, like there isn't even a noticeable reason for this one. I finally accidentally stumbled into gold with my 7th run. I started by kind of trying to get the so close yet so far ending, because I didn't get it yet, somehow. But when I fucked up doing the conspiracy theories topic, which is how you choose what stream to do by topics, we will talk about that later, I just decided to try going for the most careless run I could, after the fact, without stumbling into flatline again, hopefully. I did have to reload on some days though, because certain choices just flatlined the run out of nowhere. As in, I forgot to check a message or something because I was focused on doing other stuff. At day 18 of this run, she goes apeshit and does a suicidal stream where she barely controls herself, and I will ignore the fact that if a creator starts getting suicidal publicly, most fans would support and or call a wellness check, and the platforms would private and take it down. But besides that, our PC slightly tilts and we lose 35 affection, which naturally made me panic a bit. Though I was able to control KAngel until day 24, but she ended up vomiting on stream, something that I didn't capture because I was skipping and didn't notice it was a new event. Since I was aiming to get 1 million followers by day 30, the game, after this stream, takes control out of the player and we are forced to witness her unraveling and eventual madness spiral through comments and streams as herself and her room get bloodier and bloodier until the last stream, which the title is translated to, and I don't know how to translate it, "Welcome to the Internet Angel stream," and the end screen says, "Now she is truly happy." Being honest, this is kind of the ending I should have gotten on my first try of this game, for it to actually hit on some level, and this served me well as a way to cap off this story resume, in part because I generally can't fathom grading endings and handling this game's often cryptic systems, and in this run I tried getting the blazing hell, not internet overdose, so I kind of lied when I said I didn't, I just went to the crazies for this run. I actually wanted to get blazing hell to do everything in order, but due to the way the game expects you to play, aka not ignore every goddamn message she sends even if it is pure nonsense, I was not able to meet the requirements without doing some insane gabbles that I didn't want to commit to after so many failed runs. And also because I want to let you discover the game for yourself. I don't want to cheapen the experience, even if I spoiled a few of the endings. There is still a lot to see and play of if you enjoy these types of games. And if I find something interesting while playing, before I finish the video, I will add it to the script, as I still haven't given up on it yet. I'm just frustrated that it isn't better, for lack of a better term. but I do want to delve deeper into KAngel and Ame.
When people are like, oh my god, $28 for cookies? It's 4 bags. That's $7 a bag. I know math is hard. Like, if you're a broke boy, just say so.
Now, what I'm going to say should be obvious for anyone that started watching anime before the Great 2021 tourist invasion, but anime so clearly borrows and is inspired by a lot of 90s anime and gaming. Not only in its aesthetics, clearly retro despite the modern topic, with symbolic use of turn-of-the-century graphics and HUD style, but the way the game looks, with detailed pixel art, reminds me of the capabilities of the late Sega consoles.
And PC, 98 but Verlune is stupid.
Specifically the Sega Saturn with almost pixel perfect power to capture arcade gaming and 2D graphics in an era where 3D was becoming the norm. Besides that, it is to find that the official inspirations are 90s Bishoujo, a list of titles, and Vaporwave.
Which?
If you didn't know, Alisoft is an Eurogame developer and they were revolutionary for the time, with their most well-known series being Rance. This is actually a rabbit hole I might enter, not just because I'm horny, but because I love weird stuff like 90s jerk-off material and it's literally just crazy sprite work. Coming back to the game. Needy streamer Overload also echoes a lot of themes and styles from the post-economic depression in Japanese media and society. Neon Genesis Evangelion, Berserk, both anime and manga, as the majority of the Golden Mark was written after the economic crash, Revolutionary Girl Latina, Cowboy Bebop, Perfect Blue, and I think, most importantly,
Present day. Present time.
spoilers for Serial Experiments Lane. Serial Experiments Lane is an abstract psychological horror Denpa science fiction anime that follows Lane Iwakuda
Good job.
as she gets her first real computer and interacts for the first time with The Wired after weird emails go around the school. The Wired is the internet version of this world, by the way, and this eventually culminates in Lane becoming goddess of The Wired and rewriting reality to remove her existence. At least, this is my basic interpretation and I assume the baseline on which most used to interpret the rest of the series, but the show has much more interesting meat to analyze between its short runtime. The family situation and why they just disappear by a certain point of the story, as we are giving slight clues on why, but never outside of open-ended questions, or how Lane's sister goes insane for example. There's also the question of whether Lane herself is even real, or a natural human being. Lane, at the start of the show, has a wide presence before she even gets a modern computer, by the show's standards. The Men in Black also quickly get a hold of her, relatively to the time that has passed in the show, and in episode 10 Lane, like I said, is abandoned by the family, with the father's letter making it clear they were never blood related and they were just agents, but not explaining if the sisters had any kind of bond, where she comes from, if the family was fake, and or even if it was just a lie. But I wanted to bring CEL into this discussion because of one specific element, the split between the real and the wired Lane. Ame streams as KAngel, a fake version of herself, the same way Lane in the wired is different from the real Lane, and how Verlune VT is different from Verlune, which is different from... One of my favorite details of this game that invites this comparison is the fake Twitter posts. Both Ame does as KAngel and Ame herself. They often contradict and expose the dissimilar personalities and tastes of Ame. Same way Lane was split between the shy and lonely version in real life and the wired version who was open and had more connections to a lot of the main players in the series. From these same Twitter posts though, we can see most of her personal ones get no attention from anyone, which is just kind of sad since you can't even like them as Peachan. But they were also mostly directed at him, both directly and indirectly, be it a critique, a compliment or an acknowledgement of him and what they did. This makes Ame and Peachan's relationship the more interesting part of the game naturally, as it both mirrors and tweets Lane's and Alice's relationship. Both Lane and Ame are extremely clingy to their respective character, with the only real difference being Peachan and Ame, Aina seriously and assume, even if vague, relationship, while Alice and Lane's relationship is left at the friend stage or clearly something way more vague for interpretation, since you can infer way more about how much Lane values Alice than Alice values Lane, which opens a way deeper rabbit hole of the mental effect of social isolation, and if these make a person be much more susceptible to reading any kind of interaction and affection as bigger than it actually is. In my interpretation of the series, Lane loved Alice the same way a dog loves its owner, for lack of a better term. In many ways, I saw myself in that part of Lane, since I also like clinging to the people who validate the current version of me the most, not getting the social cues totally, but there is no major romance here, despite it being able to be read as one. Alice is way too cold over Lane, and you can infer Alice cared more about Lane superficially until she was forced to really look at her. Needy streamer overloads inverts this dynamic. Yes, Ame is the one that, like Lane, is clearly desperate for validation and an ego boost, and follows a similar, if more egocentric and non-heroic version of Lane's journey. But Pishan is not Alice. Pishan is the player, but the player can only do so much. While Lane was arrested by her feelings over Alice, Pishan is the one arrested by Ame because she holds both the needs and the power. And KAngel, like Wired Lane, is the counter to this main relation, as it serves as a way for the character to ignore the real desires with fake and faceless love that at best give new personalities to substitute the old ones that you didn't identify with perfectly, even if you love them. Not everyone can put on a front forever, and that is what the internet overdose ending naturally represents, as KAngel kills and rots away Ame into irrelevance, the death of the person by its persona, and the erasure of Ame. Although there is a deeper argument to be made around the depravity of personas and the reality of the internet, that I feel like it gets overlooked sometimes, in an ironic twist of the freedom Wired Lane felt, or even Ame, while hidden in its internet persona, before it came crashing down. The modern popular streamers that don't hide their real world beliefs and honest personalities more and more show that maybe the genius critique that Lane and Needy Streamer Overload both embody at points, all these years apart, are still relevant, but the internet split personality from the real world is not that bad as it's shown on these pieces of media, as the depravity of the real human is shown to us more and more by how many popular streamers pursue extremes.
This is so insane. America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it, I'm saying it.
We're there to partner with them. We're not there doing our own thing. We're there partnering and training
in a video
and
game,
equipping and enhancing their capabilities. So that's part of what we're doing. And the other part is just knowledge. We want to know what's happening.
Like, we fucking totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy shit. We did. We fucking did. In a video game.
Ironically, I got this ending after the first draft, which is kind of funny because it means I would probably reach the same conclusion about the fake identities just from a different angle. Needy Girl Overload might be the most normal ending I got, and it's really interesting what the game displays as Ame's actions here. I can't fully walk you into getting this ending, but I can at least recollect my steps. I did my best to grow into the 1,000,000 followers Ame wanted by day 29. The day starts normally with her saying they will stick forever, until you get a second text chain from her by going into the night, where she was contracted by a talent agency and she can live in their penthouse, but with a catch, only streamers can live there. So she decides finishing her relationship with Pishan to follow her dreams. I will refrain from starting a content creator rant about realism since this cow already has 1,000,000 followers. You can't deny this to her, so you support her and send her on her way to the life of her dreams. She tweets about it on the Ame account, which nobody sees, and becomes deeply ironic as even after this she needs to keep appearances in the KAngel account. At least she did say I love you. Aww. The tweet starts pouring in about how good the new guy is and how he gets her, so the standard fluff talk when you want to feel better about your decision. and her being happy about him getting more money to buy her stuff. Like she also isn't a big streamer, but all that is too good to be true ends quickly, as it first appears a tweet where Ame says the new guy is being dismissive and can't even perform well in bed. Scary. Scary. Of course, like any good noticer, you know where this is going, and so do I. Ame discovers that there is rumors of him having the feelings for another streamer, and after admitting she fucked up abandoning Pishan, she goes publicly in the KAngel account, and is inferred she goes feral, IRL, or just metaphorically, by the chainsaw in the borders. The ending message being, do we really want to sacrifice love in the name of fame? This ending shows, quite obviously, the consequences of putting KAngel over Ame, and serves as a bit of commentary about corporate streamers and, I guess, men? I'm just memeing a bit, since it is way more clear that this is a critique of streamers and people that are quick to dispose of people to pursue and reach their dreams, even if those steps weren't needed. I do like the detail of Ame saying Pishan would never do this, showing she is aware this is a product of her new boyfriend. Let's call him Miskif. But in the official KAngel account she says the classic #allman, which is the most realistic part of this game. Blames all men for everything wrong in society because women do it better, unless it's stature or rent. But this is pretty much also commentary on how internet personas are exaggerated, because that is what the audience wants. I'm sure someone just left a dislike because I just denied the modern feminist fantasy of renegades and outsiders when we have women all over entertainment, journalism, laws and politics. And that is what KAngel is. In the same way Wild Lane is an exaggeration of Real Lane, KAngel is an exaggerated and sensational version of Ame, and by proxy, a less aware one, since that is not what the audience wants. The same way modern social movements and politics are sensational and oftentimes nonsensical. And that is the needy girl
Overload
ending.
It doesn't really matter how much money you make or how much money you have. That's really the thing, because I'm not asking you for a large financial contribution. If it cost $20 to sub, $20 is quite a bit of money. $20 is you can get a full meal for $20, and the difference of $20 and eating a meal is in that $20, like that's where it is. But a sub is $5. At maximum, in whatever your currency is, it's maybe $10. And it doesn't matter how broke you are, if you have time to watch Twitch, you have $10, truly. If you don't have $10, you probably don't have time to watch Twitch because you should be working, you should be trying to earn money. It's not a ton, it's not like a ton of money. So being like, I'm broke, I can't afford to sub, that doesn't really track. What you mean to say is, I'm so irresponsible with my money, I can't support the entertainment that I enjoy.
Outside of mirrors and connections to the ideas of 1990s Japanese culture, the most important thing to analyze in any piece of media is if this message works with the game itself, and if the story and characters engine works as intended to pass on those themes. Well, like I foreshadowed way too many times, I think the game beats you too quickly with the themes and characterization. Because of these early red flags, the game only really becomes shocking when it goes out of its way to make fully bold changes to the visuals or throw away the theme curtain that doesn't even hide anything besides the color red. In my opinion, instead of the game representing this deep spiral making you more uncomfortable day after day, the gameplay loop and writing forces it to just say from the first moment that Ame is crazy for you. You need to balance her, and even if she has a low mental darkness, don't be surprised if she just says she wants to die and asks you to cut her. This is not really helped by all the inflated social media numbers and followers count that the game uses to drive the point home about Ame's greed and how needy she is, but it feels more like a fat lie to anyone who has tried to grow through actual content creation, since this is so unrealistic that you really question if the numbers are converted like the yen to the dollar.
Used to shop at all D's.
Only once you reach 100% stress, which, let's be real, you can absolutely manage to never do if you are actually competent, or if you get too good, unlike me. Therefore, the heavier stuff that should show up so the message of the game is more clear and deeply explored, can also just die from the player being a little numbers bitch. Of course, I must consider this game is following the DDLC style of play logic, where you are proposed and outright benefit from going in blind and do your best in a first run until you have an ending, or, if you don't immerse in this game, most likely getting the flatline failsafe. Which makes the DDLC structure even worse, since you can just flatline in the first playthrough and not understand what you are supposed to do differently to get a new or a real ending, besides replaying the whole game from the start, which isn't needed if you go past day 10. And of course, depending on how your previous run went, even starting from day 15 or so could bore you enough into just giving up, trying to go for a different ending. Focusing on DDLC a bit, the main problem I have with Doki Doki Literature Club is Monica never being an option from the start, which I know will get fans to say that's the point, and it is the point of the game to an extent, but that just naturally excludes players like me that aren't big on the three main girls and would prefer to romance Monica. If you want to develop this further, just do a fake happy ending where it clearly feels out of place and unfinished, with the other girls disappearing out of nowhere, or showing the game forcing the ending to stop, and the next retry you can't romance Monica. But somehow here it's even worse, at least in the DLC there is no option, like I said, so you can just say that I'm creating a flaw that was never the designer's intention, even if it is a missed opportunity. But in NSO, it's literally baked into the design, there is contradiction, as the game shows the count of every ending after your first run, when you can be disinterested from any actually interesting ending by getting 5 flatlines in a row. Another thing to add is that the text messages are really boring. Most of them are random stuff, sure, expected for a depressive shut-in that is slowly getting a taste of the real world, while still being deeply online, but I only felt compelled to fully read them and respond by my 7th playthrough, and even then it was rough since you generally need to figure out what is the correct emoji to send or if she is being a prick or genuine. And spoilers, 9 times out of 10 it's the love forever emote or the OMG emoji. Even more insulting, you can't interact with Ahmed tweets. God forbid you try to. You can't interact with tweets outside of the internet menu on the PC, and those are just to post stuff and other internet related things, to get a new idea or a few more followers, which almost makes you wonder if Pigeon is real, which could be an interesting twist as it fits the game's tone, even if later events prove that wrong. My favorite events are going out to random Japanese cities and landmarks. They are a really cool idea that shows the humanity of Ame, even if it also shows how much of a hypocrite she is between person and online persona. The medication tab is mostly useless, in my opinion, besides getting one stream idea that I know of, and I imagine killing Ame for another secret ending. You can realistically finish the game without touching it, and probably only fail a few endings, which is easy to do if you have a save that goes back to when those endings can be done timely. Same goes for the sleep tab, even if it's slightly better since it's really beneficial at the cost of time. As always, unlike the drugs that affect more. The Hangout tab is where most of the affection points, besides the going outside one, habit, and they always get affection up. The options include playing games, hanging out, and sex! Which is kind of funny, since it makes it look like KAngel and Pishan are much closer than they probably are, but also how broken Ame must be considering she can have sex with low affection. The Stream tab is not similar to Tycoon games from the mid-2010s, and I only really don't like how it relies on the player going out of its way to get new ideas in the same category, even if it makes slight sense, as it makes the day and dusk segments feel a bit scripted into a specific way of playing if you are going for a completionist run, if possible. The streams themselves are these short animated sprite videos where KAngel babbles about whatever topic you choose, and if you don't skip them, you can choose what messages he reacts to. I really like them and they are fun to watch, even if they get repetitive due to the amount of replays that you will naturally do to get all the endings. There is also a diary that sometimes appears and holds some of Ame's internal thoughts, and a secret document that you can only get after finishing the 26 other endings, since it's part of the true last ending. The 30-day system and the way online growth is portrayed together are fine, despite my small content creator bitching. I personally think there should be an ending where it mirrors the randomness of real life growth and how stagnant it can be, but I admit the game is not trying to be realistic even if it suffers a bit, theme-wise, by making internet fame look this grindable and quick. Musically, I think the game does what it's needed, and it's pretty good at that. It's catchy enough that you can listen on repeat, with a highlight to the transformation theme of Ame becoming KAngel, and some other tracks in the menus. The transformation theme does feel like a perfect mix of an online streamer theme and a classic shoujo transformation one. Of course, the one thing that makes this game different from any visual novel are the great pixelated graphics with a retro UI that doesn't follow the standard VN Renpai-esque model, which makes this sprite special, stand out, and probably the reason why it's so recognizable and distinct to the people that play it. You're so back. We are not so back. I'm an alligator. I'm coming for you. I'm a space invader. I'll be in rock and rollin' beats for you. Keep your mouth shut. He's smoking like a big monkey bird. Yeah, but keep your electric eye on me, babe. Put your ray gun to my head. In a moon age daydream, oh yeah. Overall, I believe this is a beautiful and creative visual novel that parallels one of the greatest eras in culture from any modern country in the modern times, but with contemporary tendencies of putting focus on a fully blind experience in a world where more and more games are discovered through let's play, streamers, and analysis like this one, making this as worse as possible. The failed state ending being obtainable from the start serves as a serious way to disengage the beginner player rather quickly, unless it's blocked on first run, which I don't know if it is. Pishan is a great blank slate, obviously, to give focus to Ame and her internet persona, which is mostly great, but the game playing it early on where it wants to go and not having a state of Ame where she is not fully crazy, or at least in the starting point of crazy, takes out a bit of the novelty of the experience. Most people cannot relate with the idea that content creation and the things like what I'm doing now can be stressful and as hard mentally as a normal office 9 to 5.
Says the idiot that has no real job.
Also, Ame's early characterization destroys the idea that this is a spiral into a digital hell and sociopathy if she says from day 2 that she wants to kill herself and Pishan is the only thing that matters. After all this talk, the truth is that the story is kind of bare bones, but expected, since the focus is on the characters, making the story Ame itself, instead of the 30 days of streaming and random canon events for everyone, like the rent and a visit from Ame with Pishan to her parents. The real question is, was Milky Way right in recommending this? The answer is obviously yes.
Just admit you want the boy no cosine.
But the deeper question of, is this game so good everyone should play it, which is more interesting, but I also think it's surprisingly mostly a yes. Even players like me who don't like when games have multiple endings but such specific and explicit stats and mechanics that don't let you fuck around and fall into endings on accident, should play it a few times, since the aesthetic and first few runs, assuming you don't straight up flatline 4 times like me, feel magical and show the dark parts of online careers most people don't see, as their gaming interactions are only their FIFA streamers and the 5 guys slop influencers because they trade intellectual exploration and literacy for the lowest common denominator of entertainment. And as much as I criticize Ame, I do relate to her struggles and many of them felt like a mirror to mine, if under different circumstances, naturally, since I don't even have a girlfriend or boyfriend to cling on to. Now, Will a commoner engage with a game like this? Will it have the DLC effect? I mean, it kinda already didn't, although it is a big game, but we more and more live in a age where multiculturalism and different looking things are being put into question for better and for worse. Compared to tourist season that was early 2020s for anime and gaming culture, the plebs I grew around felt more like the boomers of yesteryear than the public that was infatuated by the DLC and other Japanese-centric games, even if we were the same age. So, in a roundabout way, recommending this game is actually a good thing, but I'm afraid the general Western public, outside of the YA market in the US, and the artsy people of Europe kinds like myself, have moved on into the tribalist nonsense of betting sports and online casinos. And so is the story the masses need to humanize content creators, but delivered in a way none of the people who need it or need to engage with it will watch. The poison that is political lobbyism and the necessity to grow up, in quotes, has infected the mind of way too many people, making them drones that consume slop in the pursuit of feeling like adults, when real adulthood is maturity and how you solve problems, not the fact that you watch anime on weekends or not. Like that, if anime is a reflection of people like me and other streamers who devote their lives and time and mind to make the greatest and most expensive content they can make, all the people in the modern world are nothing more than the shit you highlight during the game, a sea of nonsense that assumes the creator as their personal toy or as a punching bag, with only a few messages being useful or insightful. I will now finish this video on a quote said by the great Brazilian non-F Jeff Epp.
This is the way that you make money. And made a fortune in the past 10 years selling short the shipping. Features a let the go and deal in the real world. From shipping news, the most dramatic growth has been in shipping futures, which allow shipping companies to lay off risks.
On the verge of greatness, we were this close to providing peace and security for the galaxy.